Rapid drone bombing of oil facilities. Under attack are Perm, Chelyabinsk, and Orenburg. Russia has a shortage of AI-95 gasoline after the refinery attacks. From Mariupol, Berdiansk, and Crimea, the AFU is heavily shelling key military targets with rocket fire. Battle of the century. A single Ukrainian infantryman solos 5 occupiers in close combat. The ending will surprise you. Putin messed up. He publicly spoke with a random passerby who turned out to be the manager of his residence. Zelenskyy's former press secretary, Yulia Mendel, gave an interview to propagandist Carlson and called Zelenskyy a drug addict. A mutiny is inevitable. In Kuzbass, residents report mass slaughter of livestock. Farmers are preparing a march on Moscow. AFU aliens. Ukraine's deputy defense minister announced the discovery of a UFO. Russian propagandists have been infected with hantavirus. No longer friends. Putin is openly threatening Armenia with a new special military operation. Beijing ditched Moscow. Trump did the impossible by pulling China to his side. No more components for Russia. Greetings, my name is Karina Klyshun, and right now the main news. But first, like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other in the vastness of YouTube. For the occupiers, everything is stable. Strikes happened, are happening, and will keep happening. This time against the enemy in occupied Donetsk. According to eyewitness reports, the city was under attack by unmanned aerial vehicles whose activity was visible in several districts. And by afternoon, explosions were heard directly in the swamplands. In Chelyabinsk and Perm, there's also some smoke again. And in Orenburg, an attack on an oil facility is reported. But knowing our defense forces, this is definitely not the last time. Russia itself rejected the truce and peace. Now the Kremlin is reaping the rewards. Russia has a serious problem with AI-95 gasoline after the refinery attacks. We are arriving at Tuapse station. According to fuel market participants, demand for AI-95 now far exceeds supply. Among the reasons cited are unscheduled repairs at oil refineries. Following Ukrainian strikes, oil refining volumes dropped and consumption surged ahead of summer. Due to fuel shortages, some refineries are forced to switch to AI-92, cutting production of more expensive gas. Meanwhile, authorities continue to claim the situation is stable and controlled, with supposedly no official complaints. Everything is so under control that they've even started installing drone shelters in the Tambov region. In Michirinsk, the first shelters for UAV attacks have appeared. Instead of discussing why such facilities were needed deep in the rear, local authorities immediately focused on rules of conduct. Soon, Moscow will also be a frontline city. Reading the comments on previous episodes, I see many viewers from Europe, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and even the US. We Ukrainians are grateful for your support and proud to have such sensible viewers. Comment below this episode too. Tell us which country you're watching from and if people there support our fight against the evil empire. I always enjoy reading your comments, but for now, let's move on. The most interesting part is next. Things aren't going well for the Russians at the front either. Ziwa correspondents are already shouting that the AFU has started reaching occupied territories previously considered safe rear areas. Take, for example, this key supply route to Crimea.
So here's the fuel tanker you saw in the video. It was supposed to be a rear road, completely in the rear. But now, obviously, it's not a rear area anymore. Now it's within the enemy's reach. The enemy is cutting off the road.
Ukrainian drones have begun reaching one of the main logistical arteries connecting Russia to Crimea through southern Ukraine. Now, a road once considered deep in the rear is within the strike zone. Meanwhile, Western analysts have called the current stage of the war a turning point for Ukraine. The initiative is now on the Ukrainian side. As The Economist reports, citing military experts, Russia's spring offensive has failed. Furthermore, over a long period, it has lost control over parts of the seized territories. Moreover, the Russians are now facing radical changes at the front. Russian troops have begun moving FPV drone and ammunition depots due to strikes from Ukrainian drones. Partisans found one such warehouse near Mariupol. The Russian armed forces are already losing more soldiers than they recruit. And here's a clear example of why. A single Ukrainian infantryman fights off 5 occupiers in close combat with the help of drones. The Russians have nothing left to do but weep over their losses. The world's second army is falling apart.
I'm the only one left now. All of my other friends are gone. They're dead. 1, 2, 3. 6 people. Well, I don't know, they were just shot. They were brought back later in a zinc coffin, and that's it. Everyone, all the others, they were all brought back in zinc.
I never tire of admiring the courage and heroism of Ukrainian warriors. They hold the line against a massive horde that significantly outnumbers them. That's why I urge you to support the AFU. And if you can't do it financially, write them some words of support in the comments. I know they're watching us. Meanwhile, the parade's showmanship wasn't enough for Putin. He decided to keep it going. Yesterday, Russian authorities showed Putin meeting his teacher, Vera Gurevich, at a hotel on the Arbat. Putin met a random passerby and had a conversation with him, so very much a man of the people.
Let's go, everyone. Let's go. Come in, come in.
Good day.
Good day.
Hello?
Can we take a photo?
Yes.
Thank you. So then, we're from Sochi, Krasnodar region. We came by car. Yes.
Is it warm?
Yes, when we left it was cold. We came here and it's cold again. But it's cold now, I think. 10 or 11 degrees. We shouldn't be cold anywhere. Everywhere we should be.
But where have you seen people not being checked, right? As the agency found out, the random passerby turned out to be Alexander Bazarny, who previously worked for the company managing the villas of Putin and Alina Kabaeva's mother. When Putin goes out to the people, all coincidences are carefully checked by the FSO. And moving on to Zelensky's former associates. Do you remember a certain Ms. Yulia Mendel? Back at the start of Volodymyr Zelensky's presidential term, she worked as his press secretary. But I think the president's office has already regretted that decision hundreds of times. Because Yulia likes to drop supposed inside info from time to time, that's just mind-boggling. But this time, Yulia outdid herself, likely causing trouble for the whole country. So Yulia claimed that Zelenskyy probably used drugs. And she said this not to just anyone, but to the not-so-gifted American propagandist and Ukrainophobe Tucker Carlson. And rather than talk about it at length, just listen. As the young people say, it's cringe.
Is he a drug addict?
It's no secret. I personally have never seen him use drugs. However, while writing my book, I met many people who confirmed they saw him using drugs in various clubs, and once, how he used drugs in 2021.
Yulia also said this.
Does Zelenskyy use cocaine?
Again, I haven't seen it. But the thing is, all these people were talking about cocaine.
And did you think it would end there? No. Yulia Mendel decided to address Putin. And frankly, the list of narratives and pro-Russian messages she used in this address reaches some kind of record levels. And it feels honestly as if she really wanted an Oscar for this speech of hers.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, I don't have your life experience. I don't understand how you see this world. But I'm not a NATO representative. I'm not a representative of the West. I am not working for Zelenskyy. I am not your political opponent. I'm no threat to you at all. I am a Ukrainian woman. Peace is the only thing possible that will make both Ukraine and Russia winners. In this war, there is no winner, none. Both countries are losing. Slavs are killing Slavs. When peace finally comes, I hope, I pray each and every day that peace will come. When it does come, we will all have to restore our humanity. And why don't you perhaps start doing that right now? You go to church, you offer up your prayers.
But as Mozgovoy sang, the trouble isn't that Yulia gave this interview, the trouble is who she gave it to. Broadly speaking, we know about her that, well, she's strange to say the least. But in the international perception, she's someone who was once involved with the president's office. So she makes quite a serious impression. And here it's just a question of logic. Do you think that a person who would really care about the interests of the country would give such an interview, which not only discredits the Ukrainian president, but could lead to even worse consequences with the supply of weapons to Ukraine and support for our country? For me personally, it's just some stupid desire for PR and hype, or she has a suitcase full of rubles at home. And what would you say, Mendel, and what do you think is the real reason for this interview? Stupidity or money? Stupidity or money? Perhaps that's not it? Or maybe someone saw noble intentions in her statements? It will be interesting to debate with such people in the comments. If you thought that the mass slaughter of livestock there had ended, well, no. In Kuzbass, residents report mass slaughter of livestock in agricultural enterprises and private farms. According to them, farmers are also being required to urgently vaccinate animals with a vaccine for an unnamed disease without being provided with official documents or explanations.
At the front, Olga Alexeyevna, a pediatric doctor. Just literally this morning, we weren't aware yet, we received... So, we had a study conducted, right? I said today at the staff meeting that yes, indeed, pasteurellosis was identified...
Where?
In Vaganovo.
According to local residents, restrictions are being introduced in the area on the export and sale of livestock, and they're stopping the collection of milk from farms. Moreover, the Russian authorities are trying to keep even this a secret. A deadly virus has reached Europe, and Russian propaganda is already using hantavirus for its own interests. We'll tell you what's wrong with this psychological operation.
The armed forces of Ukraine are suffering non-combat losses from hantavirus, a deadly virus in the armed forces, but commanders are refusing to treat their soldiers. Headlines like these have flooded Russian news feeds and social media. The main message: the Ukrainian army is suffering losses from a new epidemic.
Hantavirus is spreading rapidly in the Kharkiv, Sumy, and Lviv regions. Because of it, Ukrainian units in Kharkiv and Sumy are suffering non-combat losses. Notably, Ukrainian commanders are forbidding medical aid to sick soldiers, believing they're trying to avoid combat.
According to reports from the combat zone, foreign mercenaries have already dubbed hantavirus the plague, while soldiers complain of chronic health issues and high mortality from diseases in the trenches.
On May 7th, Kremlin propaganda agencies TASS and RIA published a report about a hantavirus outbreak, which had allegedly spread among the Ukrainian military. Then this news was picked up by other news outlets as well. It got to the point where alarming messages appeared in Russian social media groups in border regions.
The Voronezh region is under threat of hantavirus spreading. Due to the outbreak in Ukraine, the virus could spread to Russia's border regions, including the Voronezh region.
3 days before the Kremlin's reports, a high-profile hantavirus case was actually recorded globally. On May 4th, an outbreak was recorded on board the cruise ship Hondius, traveling from Argentina to Cape Verde. Of the 8 confirmed cases, 3 patients died. A quarantine of up to 8 weeks was declared on the ship. On May 10th, the liner arrived in Tenerife, where the remaining passengers were evacuated. We're talking about the Andes strain, the only variety of hantavirus with documented human-to-human transmission. In Ukraine, hantavirus is actually widespread across the country, but it's a completely different picture than the one the Kremlin paints.
Hantaviruses have coexisted with rodents for millions of years, causing an asymptomatic infection, with the virus being shed in urine, saliva, and droppings throughout their lives. Humans get infected by inhaling dust with dried secretions, or less often, through contact with contaminated surfaces. And only for the Andes hantavirus found on the ship has limited human-to-human transmission been documented. This outbreak is a rare combination of a dangerous strain causing severe cardiopulmonary syndrome not seen in our country. We have HFRS, a closed environment, and global movement of people. Of course, right now there's no talk of any global spread, let alone a pandemic.
The virus outbreak on the cruise ship and the increased public interest in this topic, Kremlin media immediately tried to hype up, linking this news to the epidemic in the AFU. But once again, it didn't work. The Center for Countering Disinformation immediately issued a rebuttal.
Deadly hantavirus also mowed down AFU soldiers. Fake. In Ukraine, only 1 case of fever due to hantavirus infection has been recorded.
Another toothless attempt to discredit the AFU by Kremlin media prostitutes has failed. They can't do it on the battlefield with their hands, so they try here with their media tongues.
Now for news that we apparently haven't heard since 2022. A UFO has been spotted in Ukraine. And interestingly, it was done by the Ukrainian military. Advisor to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Serhiy Beskresnov, Flash, stated that this happened back in 2023. According to him, new weaponry from the aggressor country could be hidden under the guise of a UFO. Therefore, the AFU has a special, extensive document on this topic, approved by Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky. With the start of the full-scale war, UFO research for Ukraine became more of a military task than a civilian one, Flash explains. He urged Ukrainians to send video materials in case of a UFO sighting to the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense. US-China relations are reaching a new level, and this new turn could end the war in Ukraine. Details in our report.
Trump is flying to China. A difficult meeting lies ahead.
President Trump enters these negotiations extremely weakened.
Previously, this visit was cancelled due to the war with Iran. Xi's government was not ready for the meeting until the conflict was resolved. China has officially announced the date of Donald Trump's visit to China from May 13th to 15th.
The leaders of the world's two largest economies will hold their first face-to-face talks in more than 6 months, trying to stabilize relations strained by trade, the US and Israeli war with Iran, and other areas of disagreement.
This is Trump's first visit to China in 8 years. The last time the American leader was in China was back in 2017, during Trump's first presidential term. The previous US President, Joe Biden, did not visit the Celestial Empire. But Trump and Xi met in the fall of 2025 in South Korea on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. After that, they only held telephone conversations.
Trump needs to show that he is not afraid of China. He has repeatedly issued warnings, but he has not followed through on them. For example, an additional 50% tariff on arms supplies to Iran during the war. China almost certainly did it, and no tariffs were introduced. The Chinese have a very arrogant mentality, and I think they'll be quite difficult to deal with.
Trump will arrive in China on Wednesday. On Thursday, a meeting with Xi Jinping will take place, after which the leaders will visit the Temple of Heaven and attend a state banquet. In the evening, on Friday, there will be a working lunch, after which Trump will head back to the United States. The war with Iran is expected to take a prominent place in the negotiations.
China obviously plays a major role, as it provides Iran with diplomatic support, propaganda support, economic support, targeting information, weapons, practically everything except for combat personnel.
The war in the Middle East has had a significant impact on global energy markets and exacerbated disputes between the United States and China.
If China is interested in having the situation frozen in some way, it must offer Trump something interesting in return. So, for example, trading a freeze of the situation in Iran for a freeze of the situation in Ukraine. Why not?
Another crucial issue that Trump and Xi Jinping will discuss is the war in Ukraine.
Do you want China to put pressure on Russia to end the war? I would like China to help us with the Russia issue. We have imposed very serious sanctions against Russia. I think the sanctions are really biting. They are very tough. But I would like China to help us. I have, as you know, a very good relationship with President Xi. Really good.
Putin's aggression will definitely be a subject of discussion, even if information about it doesn't leave the negotiation room.
The war in Ukraine remains the place that consumes a huge amount of resources. Yes, Trump currently lacks the capacity to produce all the weaponry and military equipment that is required by all the wars that are currently underway around the world. And so, of course, he would very much like the situation here to start stabilizing as soon as possible, because that would help ease the pressure on production.
Experts are certain both leaders are tired of the bunker villain. After all, both Trump and Xi love money, and money loves silence. According to sources close to the negotiations, the parties will analyze Russia's economic state and its future place in the world. The Kremlin knows that Beijing can decide everything for them. That's why on May 9th, Putin was so frantically giving comments to journalists.
The geopolitical situation by the end of May 9th began to deteriorate sharply for Putin. He had to hastily convene this very briefing, at which, pay attention what he announces. Let's focus on that separately. He suddenly announces that the war is close to an end. Suddenly, for the first time, he states that he is ready to meet, and for the first time, he utters the name of the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in a neutral country, and announces his upcoming visit to China, which I believe hasn't been mentioned anywhere before either.
Military, diplomatic, and political fiascos have led Putin to a point where he'll have to agree to everything. The Kremlin dictator has begun to realize that he clearly hasn't measured up to the world's powerful. And no one is going to take him along to play in the big geopolitical sandbox. Russia was never a serious global player, but after the start of the war in Ukraine, it turned into a complete pariah. The economy is in ruins, the army is discredited. No one takes such weaklings into account.
This fear, it's without a doubt the strongest for him because he saw, as he personally witnessed, how the United States reached an agreement in Venezuela when simply his inner circle betrayed Maduro and sent him to an American prison. And on the other hand, he saw how Khamenei was eliminated.
In addition, the US president will try to pressure Xi Jinping to persuade him to stop supporting Iran and Russia, including providing them with dual-use components and potential arms exports.
In this situation where Trump, I would say, became disillusioned with Putin as a possible partner, he becomes interested in such a possible partner as China.
Washington remains concerned about the aid China provides to Tehran in exchange for Iranian oil.
As for Iran itself, it's about oil. China gets 45 to 50% of its imported oil through the strait. By the way, it also doesn't get Venezuelan oil at a discount. So this has a significant impact on certain sectors of the Chinese economy.
In addition, the parties will discuss economic and trade issues and technological restrictions imposed by Washington.
Yes, we need Chinese rare earth elements. We need their pharmaceutical products. But for the Chinese, I think access to American consumers is absolutely essential. So the issue of tariffs will be important.
It's clear that for China, the American market is one of the largest. For America, too, trade relations with China are quite important because China can really do a lot. So, of course, economic interests are always a priority for Trump.
China has introduced retaliatory measures regarding rare earth elements, which play a vital role in global supply chains. In 2025, the leaders had already agreed to suspend the trade war.
The Trump administration considers China to be the most serious geopolitical competitor and even, I would say, an adversary. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right? So this will likely be an agreement with a potential enemy.
The Chinese yuan has effectively pegged itself to the American currency, so everyone will benefit from this meeting. But not Putin, who tried to have it both ways. His song has already been sung.
And in the regions, there is stability. They are steadily sinking. Take Omsk, for example. Everything is made there. Tanks, missiles, flamethrowers, systems, rocket engines. But they just can't seem to fix the roads. There is no way to save people from death or fire. The vehicles simply cannot get through. God and the cars are like in the Soviet era.
This is the situation on our roads. Pervomaysky Lane. Someone is waiting for an ambulance, people are sick, and our administration does not give a damn. Look, people are waiting for help.
That is it.
People are waiting for help. The ambulance is stuck. Now we are going to pull it out ourselves.
And those who complain and are outraged should have understood long ago. First the liberation of Malaya Tokmachka, then everything else. Putin does not care about the regions. Putin is already openly threatening Armenia with war following the recent European Union summit in Yerevan, which, of course, President Zelenskyy attended. Here are the details and specifics.
Putin is threatening Armenia.
Now, as for Armenia's plans to join the European Union, this, of course, requires special consideration. We have discussed this with Prime Minister Pashinyan more than once.
According to the Russian dictator, the Armenian authorities should hold a referendum on the issue of joining the European Union.
It is not our business, but in principle, it would be quite logical to hold a referendum. We will support everything that is beneficial to the Armenian people. We have had a special relationship with the Armenian people for centuries. And if it is beneficial for the Armenian people to make one decision or another, please, we will not be against it. But of course, we must keep in mind certain circumstances that are important both for us and for our partners.
Putin also recalled that Russia's war against Ukraine began with the country's entry or attempt to enter the European Union.
In the end, after all, even then, President Yanukovych read it more carefully, thought about it and said, no, for now, I am probably not ready for this, because it would cause too much damage to Ukraine's economy. He did not refuse to join. He said, I have to come back to this again, analyze everything.
All this then led to the coup d'etat, to the Crimean story, to the position of southeastern Ukraine, and to the hostilities. That is what it all led to.
At this stage, Russia is not achieving the effect they had hoped for more than 4 years ago. Accordingly, in order not to look like a country that is losing the current situation, Russia needs to create a parallel story to which it can slowly shift attention. And here, several options are being mentioned, so to speak, because first and foremost, they talk about the possibility of an attack on Estonia, on Narva. The second is the Suwalki Gap. This is a corridor, let me remind you of the geography, between Belarus and the Kaliningrad region through the territory of Lithuania and Poland. But there are also options in the South Caucasus. For Russia, the South Caucasus is becoming a very problematic spot, as Russia has traditionally considered it its zone of influence. But the recent events taking place there clearly demonstrate to Russia that it is being slowly pushed out of the region, to put it mildly.
The head of the Kremlin described Armenia's initiative to join the EU as a serious issue that requires discussion.
When I hear statements like, well, how can Russia do anything? It can't win the war in Ukraine and it has no time for other conflicts. I remember history. August 1941, World War II. And for the Soviet Union, it's the Great Patriotic War, since for the first 2 years the Soviet Union was an ally of Germany, and then Germany attacked the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, while fighting back, even losing the war to Germany at that time, begins military operations against Iran and captures a large part of Iran, specifically in August 1941.
In the spring of 2025, the Armenian parliament approved a law to begin the process of the country's accession to the EU. In August, the country's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan stated that Yerevan might withdraw from the Eurasian Economic Union as the republic strives for European integration and cannot be in both organizations.
Life in Yekaterinburg is so tough that after a night of drinking, you might wake up the next morning in a coal car near Tyumen. That's exactly what happened to a guy who doesn't know how he could have fallen flat on his face like that.
Well, anyway, Sonia, let me see.